Hello, beautiful queens and kings and Robin in our VIP room right now. I see Sherry's coming in as well. Welcome back. We have had such a beautiful conversation about all of the rebirth energy that is going on in the planet right now as we're moving into spring, coming out of COVID, coming out of Easter, Ramadan, Passover. So much of the globe, and definitely here in the South today, there is this phoenix from the fire, kind of new energy. And we've been talking with a group of amazing thought leaders. You know, we only have a few select men that get invited to this gorgeous space. But we've been talking about, as leaders, with what's going on in this fresh energy, what are you walking through? What tools are you leaning most into? And we're continuing the conversation about what it is to manifest our divinity in this time. So I'm so excited to welcome Dr. Joe Vitale, who many of you may have seen in The Secret, but he's written many books. We've had a lot more time together in the past 6 months. And thank you just so much for being here today. And with your background, be happy. You're already giving us subliminal messages. Keep moving, be happy. Right. So thank you already. Thank you, Dr. Joe.
Of course. I've been looking forward to this. I'm honored that I've been invited to be here. So I'm glad to help in any way that I can. Thank you.
Yeah. So I know you're well known for law of attraction and, creating reality, the Ho'oponopono prayer, then taking it beyond that. But for some people who may not know you yet, can you give us a little background on why you're in this field in the first place? And yeah, and what's most pressing on your heart? Because you've written so many books now, I could go back to any place, but I want to talk about what's on your heart right now, and what tools are you working with the most?
Great questions. Great questions. First of all, I got into self-help because I needed help. It was my own search for happiness, well-being, serenity, peace, my own quest for escape from the abuse that I was feeling growing up, the insecurities that I was experiencing as a young man. I had dreams, but so many self-doubts that were crushing me that it led to my being homeless for a while, being in poverty for 10 years. All during that time, I'm struggling. All during that time, I'm researching. All during that time, I'm working on me. So I'm into self-help because I needed to help me. And as I was able to help me, people around me noticed and would ask questions. That led to me thinking, well, maybe I should write some books about this, and started writing them, driven by passion more than anything else. And that's really been my secret all throughout my career. I just followed what was genuinely my passion and my interest. And as I pursued it and turned it into books, I was able to help other people. But I really began as a marketer. I learned marketing to promote my very first book. I didn't know anything about marketing, just like I didn't know anything about self-help in the beginning. But as I learned marketing and started writing marketing books, people hired me for marketing. But on the side, I was still doing my spiritual search and my spiritual publications. And it's because of those side interests that ultimately people like Bob Proctor opened doors for me that turned into a turning point in my career. And I ended up, because of Bob and because of books I was writing, to be in the movie The Secret. The Secret shot me out into the world as a spiritual teacher and self-help teacher. So all of that is all from my genuine beginnings of trying to help myself. And then as I've helped myself, by extension, I've helped other people. What's currently on my mind and in my heart is the continuation of that, but in a very spiritual direction. A lot of my early works, including the movie The Secret, was very material oriented. And there's not a thing wrong with that. I'm all in favor of a nice house, a nice car, living a luxurious lifestyle. We deserve it. Why not? We're spiritual beings in the human experience. Indulge, enjoy. And yet, along the way, we can forget the spiritual part. And I'm here to remind ourselves, including me, of the spiritual part, and to actually move in the direction of letting the spiritual lead us, not letting the material quest lead us, but let the spiritual lead us. And we can still have the material, but what needs to come first is divinity. And that's where my work with Ho'oponopono, that's where my work with the Awakening course, my current work with, I have a TV show now, and it's called Zero Limits Living. Everything I'm doing is to help people realize that the limits you have are most likely mental ones. And when you remove those, you can live a life of zero limits, which is also a title of one of my books. So my personal quest right now is to find out if we have any actual limits. I don't think we do, but that's the grand experiment. Let's find out if we do. So there you go. That's a long question to a long answer to a great question.
I thought it was a great amount of answer. And yeah. So I can see so much alignment. I find myself working a lot in the business realms of connecting people, creating strategic alliances, but the spiritual work continues to call me. And this year I really put it in the ground, and I'm just saying grounding it in, that I have this sacred little intimate women, a group of women where we're just tapping into the divine feminine. We're not focused on scaling their businesses or marketing or any of that. And what's happened, and it's so interesting, is that all of them had, even within the first 6 weeks, the biggest months financially of their lives. And we're not focused on that in our time together. We're focused on our divinity and releasing and moving. Do you find that as well? I just saw that. Yeah. And why is that? Why do you think that is?
I'm not surprised at all. That actually seems to be the secret to success. Rather than chasing success, express spirituality. A lot of my books, even on marketing, my book, The Attractor Factor, which was the book that got me invited to be into the movie The Secret, I talk in that book, and this is 2005, I talk in that book about your energy in you is what people are responding to. And even the energy you put into, I talked about ads back then, we would be talking about websites today and webinars and blog posts and Instagram stories and all of this. The energy that we are emitting that goes into that is what people respond to. If the energy that we are emitting is one of buy my product, buy my goods, people feel that. If the one that you're emitting is something along the lines of, I love what I'm doing, I love you, I'm expressing divinity through my activities, people respond to that. So I have found that the more we come from, the expression of divine love, the more we get blessed with the material. It seems to kind of fall into place. One of my most recent books is called Karmic Marketing. Karmic marketing is something I've been practicing for 25 years, but I never talked about it and never wrote a book until most recently. Karmic marketing comes from the philosophy of giving what you would normally sell, but you give it to where you think it would be doing the most good and where you feel inspired to give, where you've been spiritually fed. And then karmically, metaphysically, universally, you get rewarded 10 times over in some surprising and unexpected and joyous way. Again, what I'm confirming is what you're talking about here. The more we actually go to our heart and express what's knocking at our inner door, the more we are in the flow of the universe. And the flow of the universe includes money. It includes wealth. We actually talk about money needing to circulate. When you are expressing your love, you are in the circulation of the universe. That circulation includes cash. So sooner or later, those sales come around to you. But that that can't be the focus. You can certainly wrestle with the world and bend it a little bit, and you'll feel like you're type A behavior, you're running your business and you're making some money from it. There's no real joy in that. There's no real passion in that. There's no real health in that. There's no real divine expression in that. However, if you drop that and express the divinity and what it's asking you to do, then the other can come to you peacefully, joyously, unexpectedly, and pretty much effortlessly.
Okay. This is amazing. It sounds amazing. Monica's in here and you'll get to unmute later, Monica, but she's one of the ones in my sacred space that had her highest paying client in this 6 weeks, one of them in this, which is really great what we were talking about in that little container. But so this sounds so great. Let me ask you though, when you've got driven, because, you know, I get to work with, and a lot of the women here are spiritually driven entrepreneurs. And as they start to scale, often they're wearing a lot of hats before they begin delegating and taking on those next levels of leadership. And so what happens is this kind of, it can happen, this pressure cooker of like all the things they need to do. Some of them are single moms, or they're the main providers. The men are staying at home. And, you know, and now how do you, in the middle of like, okay, but I hear you, Dr. Joe, but I'm mid project. Everything's counting on me right now. I don't know what I could put down to embrace this free, loving, you know, universe in this moment. Like it feels like something I could do when this project is over, which, you know, the next one pops on right away. So, so how do you make that transition, or what is your, what are your tips for that?
Brilliant questions. And I've certainly been there, because I remember as I was building my career, leaving homelessness, leaving poverty, starting to get my legs, starting to get a little name for myself when I was living in Houston, Texas. And then the pressure cooker is coming because I'm being asked to do a lot of things. More projects are coming in. I'm getting some speaking engagements, all for free back then, but it was what I was doing for publicity. And it's overwhelming. And so here's the two things that come to mind for me that I had to learn. The first is ask for help. Ask for help. That is one of the biggest things. Now, I had to be reminded, and maybe it's my duty now to remind everybody on this call, that when you ask for help, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. You are growing, you're bulging at the seams here, and you need somebody or some buddies to help you. The other thing to recommend or remember when you're asking for help is people want to help. If they can, they will help. The general rule of thumb is if you get asked by somebody to help, if I asked you to help me in some way, most likely you would agree to it because you want to help. There's the human experience of wanting to lend a hand. If you're unable to for some reason, then you'll probably recommend somebody else, or say not at this time, or it's not a match, but you'd feel good if you could do it. And so when you ask for help from people, you have to remember how they feel. If they can do it, they will probably want to help you. That's the first thing to do, is ask for help. Now, I'm going to say something that might be weird, but this audience can take it. The other way of asking for help is to ask for help from your guides, from your guardian angels, from the invisible support team on the other side. Now, everybody
right now, just ask the guides. You hear that? Everybody who wants to help us, come on in.
Right.
Yeah, I see so Robin asking. I see Monica asking. Thank you, Dr. Joe. Keep going.
Ask the physical people that could help you. So if you're getting overwhelmed and there's projects and there's things that be done, definitely ask for help. Delegation is one of the great secrets to growing a business. And I had to learn it the hard way because I wanted to be hands-on. I wanted to control it. But as soon as I started letting go, asking for help, hiring help, I actually freed myself to do more of what I love. And that's important for everybody to remember. When you ask for help, or you delegate, or you hire somebody, you free yourself to do more of what you love, which will mean more money will come in as a result of doing that, which will enable you to pay the people that are helping you or you delegated to. But I don't want to leave what I just said about asking for help from your guardian angels. I'm a great believer in doing that. I do it every single day. When I'm at home in Texas, I get in the hot tub. When I'm in the hot tub, I'm looking at the sky and I'm saying, thank you. But I always enlist my angels and I speak out loud. I think it's important to speak out loud because I don't think they can read your mind. I think that they're kind of floating around in our vicinity and they're basically unemployed because we haven't asked them to do anything. And what you want to do is ask. If you're working on a project or if you need help in some way or you need a solution, you need a connection, ask your guardian angels out loud, please make this happen. Please give the most benevolent outcome to this question, this search, this plea, this need that I might have. Most of us have at least 3 guardian angels waiting right around us, and they're sitting around drinking coffee or beer or whatever they're doing, waiting for you to say whatever it is that you want them to do. So you need to speak it. And that's what I do when I'm in the
Dr. Joe, you're going to have me in the streets, people questioning my sanity. I'm going to be talking all day, all day. Somebody give me a parking spot. I need right now, publicity in the sky, but I love it. So if you didn't ask out loud, Robin and Monica, let me see your mouths moving right now. Sherry, ask your angels. Let's get it enlisted. We don't play around here. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I love that you said that. That's a core takeaway. That's a core takeaway. I mean, I certainly, and everyone who's drawn to my circle and stays, they're very spiritually minded because I speak it so often and on purpose so that if they're not enjoying it, they leave early because that is a core value for me.
Well, I wouldn't talk about guardian angels and asking for the help from the other side if I didn't feel comfortable with this audience. But we have to look at the reality. Napoleon Hill, who I'm a huge fan of, a lot of the books behind me are signed Napoleon Hill books. In his career, he often said that he asked for help of his invisible mastermind. He was a great believer in a mastermind. We're in a mastermind right now, and he taught the mastermind, but he also had invisible folks from the mastermind. He had a couple he even named. Knapp Hill, I think, was one of them, which was part of his first name and his last name. And so this is something that is not that unusual. Even the people who are into traditional success, the Zig Ziglar approach to let's go get it done, there's the spiritual side to them that not all of them talk about. And talking to your angels and asking for help is one of their secrets. The other thing I would say is when I ask for help, I don't usually do it when I'm standing around other people. Okay, I don't do it at a store or, anything like that. But if I'm driving and I'm alone, yeah, I'll do it. If I'm in my hot tub and I'm alone, yeah, I'll do it because it's confidential. It's my connection to spirituality. These are my guardian angels. I don't want other people talking to them. This is between me and them.
I won't be in the streets. Don't worry. Thank you for protecting me, though. You can tell he doesn't know me that well yet. He's like, in case you were going to do that, please don't pin that to me. Yeah, I love that so much. Okay, so the out loud and I do recall it's one of my favorite things about Napoleon Hill is his invisible counsel. I thought of him and invited Wayne Dyer to give me some assistance today because I love Wayne Dyer had simplicity. He had just a few core people, Reed Kelly over there at Hay House, and he had one assistant and one writer. And it was so smooth and elegant for him. So Joe, that would help anyone midstream, just being able, even though they're busy, because, even when you start looking for help and asking for help, it takes whatever time it takes to find the people to show up. I'm not putting a limit on that because we're zero limits, but then that immediate asking and knowing that you're heard and that forces are going to work for you can start to sink you into that spiritual realm when all the doing and the machine and the pressure is going on. Is there anything else you would say for like staying grounded in very, like I always say, I always tell myself, Oprah she's not getting any less busy and she still has time to chill somehow, right? So what's yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, as
You
things
have
are
to make
going.
time. You have to make time for the silence. You have to make time to receive. This is self-care. You can call it a meditation. You can call it your gratitude time. Really, the hot tub is it for me, because at the end of the day, that's what I get into. And generally, I'm by myself. It's me and the universe. It's me and my guide. It's me and the sky. It's me and the divine. So it's my alone time. I don't have my phone with me. I don't have a computer with me. There's not the technological distractions. And so I can really tune in. We all have to do that. We're eating every day. We're sleeping every day. We're drinking our coffee every day, or water, or whatever it is every day. We need to make time to reconnect every day. We have to unplug. So you can call it a meditation. You can call it gratitude. Neville Goddard's one of my favorite mystical writers, and he would say at the end of his talks, and now let's enter the silence. And I always love that. It's like, okay, let's just chill. Let's close our eyes. Let's unplug. Don't answer any emails. Don't look at any of that stuff for a little bit. And let's get within. It's that reminder, those connections. Now, at the same time, I say that, and I really do want people to use it as a kind of habit or a discipline or play, whatever you end up calling it, that gets you to do it. We want to move into the place of being able to do it moment by moment. A walking wakefulness, a walking connection to divine as we go about our business, we go about our day, we go run our errands, to have that alertness that I'm in the moment, I'm connected to the divine, all is well. There's no real stress here. You know, the stresses are usually coming from what we remembered from the past or what we're fearing from the future. But in this moment, everything's pretty cool. You have to stay in the moment though. And so that is the practice, is business in the marketplace, or being a mystic in the marketplace. As we go about our business,
Ooh,
we're breathing, we're
I like
staying
that
in.
one.
Yes, Mystic in the Marketplace is a book I've wanted to write for 30 years.
Do it. Is it in karmic marketing? I have it, but I didn't see that phrase in there.
Yes, it's in there.
Okay.
And karmic marketing was the other thing I wanted to write. But the whole idea is we need to make time. And I know that moms with kids, with a business and everything, it's got to feel like it's frenzy, you know, it's just all crazy. But that's why we have to make time. So we can stop the frenzy and slow it down and bring it down and get back into the moment and breathe and go, oh, okay, I got this.
I agree. This year I have Fridays are my flex Fridays. The last week of every month is off, and the last month of every year. And it has been so good. And even Monica in my private group, some of the women were going, what are we going to do on the off week? And I would say, you're going to recover, you're going to integrate, you're going to receive everything you're receiving. So you're really confirming for me that is the way. So I want to know, because this will go out and replay and we'll restream it lots of times. So you're going to touch a lot of people in just this event. I think there's 700 women enrolled in just this little event. So it will get to them, and then I'll restream it publicly and all that. But for those who don't know you and your dedication to the prayer Ho'oponopono, and then I want to go where you're going next in your spiritual work. Talk about that internal. And why is that so powerful and important? And then the fifth part of that.
Wow. Well, Ho'oponopono is going to be a turning point if people are hearing it for the very first time, because it is miraculous. It's miracle attracting. It is a way of repentance, forgiveness, reconnection. It is an incredible tool. I was lucky enough to meet the man who helped heal an entire ward of mentally ill criminals at a state hospital for the criminally insane in Hawaii. This man helped heal every inmate there. These inmates were dangerous. They were sedated or they were shackled every day. And doctors or nurses were quitting because it was such a hellish place. But this one therapist went there, and they needed to have a therapist to get their funding. So they were willing to take any oddball that came. This therapist said, well, I'll come, but I'm not going to work with the inmates. And I'm going to do this healing practice called Ho'oponopono. And they were like, go do whatever you need to do. He went in his office, he'd look at the charts of the inmates, he'd be repulsed, he'd be angry, he'd be grieving, he'd be shocked. But whatever he felt, he owned it. And he used this thing called Ho'oponopono to help heal himself. This is an important thing. He was trying to heal himself. As he felt better and moved closer to a place of serenity or peace or comfort, the patients started to get better. They started to get better to the extent that they didn't have to be shackled. They didn't have to be sedated. And after some months, some of them were being released. After 4 years, they were all released. And I heard this story and I thought, what was he doing? Because whatever that magic was, think if you and I could do it for our itsy bitsy problems. We're not dealing with mentally ill criminals or the insane, though we might think we are sometimes. We're dealing with everyday reality and our challenges. And I thought, what is this Ho'oponopono? Long story short, I met with him. I worked with him. We wrote the first book together, Zero Limits. We did 3 seminars together, Zero Limits 1, 2, and 3. Profoundly influenced me. And I'll teach everybody the process right now. Ho'oponopono is an inside-out approach to transformation. So let's make this real. Think of something that's bothering you right now. And it could be a worry, it could be a fear, it could be a concern, it could be a conflict, it could have been something that happened this morning or something yesterday, something that's still there and bugging you. Doesn't even matter what it is. So once you have that, notice that it's in you. You have to notice that where you're feeling this problem is not out there. You don't feel it over there across the street. And even if you say it's your neighbor, or your kids, or your boss, or this client, all of those are being felt in you. That's really important to realize the problem is one of perception, and the perception is in you. So Ho'oponopono brings it all the way in, and that's the first step. Next is to take 100% responsibility for it. You can't blame anybody in Ho'oponopono. You can go, yeah, I didn't like what they said, but the trigger and the upset isn't in them, it's in you. And so you have to realize the problem, my perception is in me, the trigger was in me, what got pushed was in me. And so, most of the world wants to blame everybody else, and it's easy to do. Oh, they said that, they upset me. Where's the upset? It's in you. The trigger's in you. All right, so we bring it all the way inside of ourselves, and now we want to practice Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono is, in its very fundamental essence, is 4 phrases. These 4 phrases you're saying within yourself as a kind of prayer to your connection to what I end up calling the great something. You can call it God, you can call it divinity, you can call it the universe, you can call it source, you can call it cosmos, you can call it the higher power. I think everybody is, particularly that's watching this, agrees that there is something bigger than each of us. And it's operating through us, and we have access to it. So we use these 4 phrases to kind of call it up and ask it to remedy our problem. And how do we ask it? We say, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Those are the 4 phrases. You can say them in any order. Typically, you don't say them out loud. You say them inside yourself as if you had called up divinity and you said, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. So what is actually going on here? When you're saying those 4 phrases, I'll take one more minute to explain it because I want everybody to get it.
As long as you want. It's good, right? This is good, Robin and Monica. Yep. So go ahead.
This is what you're actually doing. This is the process. Okay. You feel it inside, you take responsibility for it. And now you want to resolve the issues within you that have actually triggered it and probably attracted it. So inside yourself, you're talking to your connection. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And what you're basically saying is, please forgive me for being unaware of my beliefs, whether they came from my ancestors or they came from my upbringing, wherever they came from. I was unaware of my beliefs that are operating within me that could have caused this. Please forgive me.
Oh, I'm so glad this is recorded. I am so glad this is recorded. I haven't heard it broken down like this that I remember.
I've learned to do this over the years. I've been talking about this for 15 years at this point, and I've learned that people have questions. And so one of them is, do you say it out loud? No, typically you say it inside yourself to your connection. Another question is, do you say them in any order? You say them whatever order it feels right to you. And then how do you break it down? So please forgive me. I've been unconscious to my own beliefs. I'm sorry for whatever I or my ancestors may have said or done to create this experience in my life. Now, please forgive
That's
me, and I'm
moving me to
sorry. Those are,
tears. How powerful is that to
yes,
own, like, I'm sorry for my aunt, anything my
yeah.
aunt, that just moved me. Go
This
ahead.
is taking full responsibility. And if there's any two areas that people get upset about with Ho'oponopono is they don't like to say, I'm sorry, or please forgive me. And I point out, it's not about guilt. It's not saying you're wrong. It's not saying you're guilty. It's saying you were unconscious, and you were unconscious to beliefs that you probably didn't even know you inherited. I tell people it's like being in a store and it's real busy and you bump into somebody. Don't you look at them and say, I'm sorry? It doesn't mean you were wrong. It doesn't mean you need to be punished. It means you were unaware. And in that unconsciousness, you bump somebody. That's the nature of these statements. So I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. The please forgive me and I'm sorry are about what you've inherited that's being expressed that you didn't really have anything to do with. But you're asking the divine to clean it up. Then you're saying, thank you. Thank you for this process. Thank you for this healing. Thank you for my life. Thank you for the resolution. Thank you for the clearing, cleaning, however you want to word it. We're moving into gratitude. And then I love you, which is my favorite statement. I love you is moving us back into a connection to the divine. I love you from my life. I love you for this process. I love you for Ho'oponopono. I love you for this cleansing. I love you for this clearing. So the four phrases are actually saying a mouthful, but all you have to do is say the four phrases. And some people will say how often or how long. Dr. Hulen was the therapist who taught me all of this. He was the therapist at the hospital. Dr. E. Haleakula Hulen was his name. And when people asked him that, he said, you never stop. You never stop. There is so much cleaning and clearing and baggage and debris from inheritance that we brought in through mankind, womankind, the world, humanity. He says, just never stop. And then I would add, how hard is it to mentally say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I've been doing it long enough. Now it's the background tape in my head. I'm from old school with tapes, but it's the background audio, the background digital, whatever you want to call it. And so even now, as I'm talking to all the wonderful people here, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, is going on back here. That's the essence of Ho'oponopono. I have seen at this point, because I've written 3 books on it, that it's been used for everything you can think of. People had animal problems or animals were sick. They were working on their perception of it to make a difference. People with financial problems, business problems, relationship problems, health problems, love problems. I imagine whatever you would name, somebody has already experimented and succeeded in using Ho'oponopono with it. So that's the broad
And you took it a little further, but you took it, and isn't that powerful? Even if you've heard it before, Robin and Monica, and hearing it again, and the layer of, I'm sorry for my unconsciousness. I'm sorry for anything that's operating that I'm still not aware of. Thank you.
Yes.
Forgive me for that. It always, love is moving and healing and reconnection, reconciliation, reclamation, all of that really moves me. So thank you for that. You took it a little further, didn't you? Write another book about what's beyond that?
I did. I ended up writing 3 books. The first with Dr. Hulen, that's called Zero Limits. And that's usually the one that turns people on their ear because it tells the story at length. And it's, if I say so myself, it's pretty riveting. The second book I wrote 10 years later, and that's called At Zero. And during that time, I had heard every question you can think of, and I answered them all in that book. And then the third book, which is the most recent, is called The Fifth Phrase. I had held an advanced Ho'oponopono workshop a few years ago. And the night before I was to speak, I awoke at like 3 a.m. and I received the 5th phrase. It was like divinity, whatever you want to call it, just kind of downloaded it to me. And so the next morning when I got up, I told them all of that. And I said, and here's the 5th phrase. And I spent an hour and a half explaining it. One woman came up and said, the 5th phrase is so powerful, you no longer need the other 4 phrases. Oh. And I wouldn't go that far. Excuse me. But it is powerful. enough that I wrote a whole book on what the fifth phrase was. So if I just said it and blurted it out, I don't know that everybody would appreciate it. So
we need to get the book to get it. There
yeah,
you go.
I would
we
say,
got
I would say use the 4 phrases. That's, you got it. I love you. I'm sorry.
But now I'll get the fifth. I have your karmic marketing. Are you on, is it on Audible? The fifth phrase is on Audible.
I'm
right?
sure it is. Yes.
And you're the one speaking it, right?
I don't remember if I recorded it.
Okay, I've
written 80 some books. Many of them are recorded, and I don't know if I recorded
80?
that one or not.
I had no idea. 80.
Yeah, I think it's more than that. Other people count them. I'm too busy writing books and reading books to count my books, but somebody I think said 85 books.
Somebody, I've lost count. I'm going to be there one day, Joe. You're giving me new goals. I'm rewriting my manifesto. This is beautiful. I'll write it in. So now everything that you've said to me sounds and feels very spiritual. And I started this with where are you going now? And you were like, more spiritual, even more spiritual. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
That means dropping, I'll give you the spontaneous answer. That means dropping all the human limits.
Okay.
That means dropping all the human limits. I don't think I've ever given that answer before, but I think that's where we're going and coming from. One of my other favorite teachers, and I have many authors I admire, those books are real. That's not some sort of mirage or green screen or curtain. I love books. And one of the other authors that I've read was Arnold Patton. And Arnold Patton had this great quote. He said, "You don't create abundance. You create limitations." Now stop and think. You don't create abundance. You create limitations, which really means anything that we think is a limit out there against our abundance, against our prosperity, against what we're actually longing for, or even by extension, our spirituality, the limits are ours. The limits are in us. And I'm vaguely remembering a quote from Rumi, the Persian poet, who said that our goal is to remove our barriers to love. So I would say where we're going and where I'm going is to remove the barriers, the limitations, the mental constructs, the limiting beliefs that keep me or anybody from the full expression of divinity. Divinity's trying to come through, but for most of us, we've got the overlay of beliefs, most of which we're not even aware of what they are. But even right now, if people are sitting there going, well, I have an idea for this business, or I have an idea for a book, or I have an idea to record a music album, or I have an idea to open up a child's school of one sort, what rushes in? All of the excuses, all of the concerns, all of the fears. Well, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't have the connections. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too fat. I'm too thin. I don't have blah, 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 blah. All of those are the limitations. When I was in Houston, this is decades ago, I guess Spirit was speaking to me then because I gave a talk at a small church. And I walked in and I basically said, if you thought like God, what would you do? This is decades ago. This is in the 80s, early 90s. If you thought like God, what would you do? That's where I'm going now in current reality in our new year, a new century, and everything that we're going for. If we drop all the barriers, all of our limitations, which are in the mind, what would you do as God? Yes. There would be no limit. You wouldn't sit there and you wouldn't sit there and say, I can't do that. If you're thinking like God, you're going to go, yeah, let's go do it. Let's go build a railroad to the moon or whatever comes to mind for you, because you'd be thinking the only limits that are coming up are the limits that I'm agreeing to. So where am I going? I'm going in the direction of what is it like for zero limits living, which is the title of my TV show. And that's what I'm exploring with the experts I bring on every week. Zero limits living. What is it like to live with no limits? What is it like to fully express spirituality? What is it like to pretend you're God, not the God? You didn't make the universe, but you made your universe. And then how do you express yourself through zero limits living?
Yeah, I can see we're so aligned. For the past 4 years, all of my manifestos that I listen to come from the I am. I take it Neville Goddard, Saint Germain, I am
Yes.
that I am. I am the resurrection and the life. I'm the light flowing in the air. And really moving into that divine space.
Mm.
It's so great to hear you say that powerfully, because I do, like you, believe we are all connected and an expression of God. Your God is Joe Vitale. That's God is Monica. That's God is Robin. And we're Shari and Ashwin. I don't see you, and everybody who's watching the replay. We're all co-creators. And back to what you talked about with the clear space and the time in the hot tub and the self-care, is that, you know, as gods or co-creators, when your mind is full of to-do lists, the past, the future, Netflix and McDonald's and what you want to eat, and gambling and alcohol and sex and whatever is, and all are beautiful things in moderation, right? They can be. I'm not really into gambling. Just give me the purse. I'd rather know where it's going. But I know, like, some people really enjoy it, you know. But all those things take that God energy into a million different directions and are feeding all those other agendas. And so when you take that time to really get in the hot tub or get in your silence and to reclaim those energetic cords, it's like you're not, those are all beautiful agendas created by someone being very intentional, but then most people are on such autopilot, we all can get there, where it's that clearing of the clutter through meditation, and that then you get a more focused laser, you know, and your God force energy really gets to create. So it's interesting how it circles all the way back. So being limitless. And then what are you going to, I know you've got the TV show that's with Mo and LA Tribune, right?
No, it's not. It's with Lux
Okay.
Media Studios, which is out
Okay.
in Beverly Hills on Rodeo Drive.
Awesome.
Mo and the Los Angeles Tribune has offered to put the show on their network as well, but it
Perfect.
started with Lux Media Studios, and the show is now seen on 1,000 platforms, including Roku and Amazon Fire and Apple TV and Spotify, and I don't know. I put up a website for anybody interested. It's ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com.
Awesome.
ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. And I'm having a blast. I can't believe I've already recorded 26 episodes, like a half a year. Seems like only yesterday I was being invited to do the TV show. So
Are
things
you,
happen quick, and I'm going for the ride.
yeah, are you going to do any live events?
Eventually,
Okay.
due to COVID, I haven't done it in a couple years. It's interesting. The last three countries I went through before the shutdowns were beginning was Iran, which I never thought I'd go to at any point in my life, but there I
Mhm.
was. And they're some of the most wonderful people in the world, which proves that the political systems in most countries need some divine help. But the people
Yes.
within them that are under them, they're just like you and me. They got dreams, they got goals, they got visions, they're raising their families, they want to have a great life. Iran was one, Russia was one, and Ukraine was one. So I have friends in all of those
The
places.
Ho'oponopono energy needed to be there ahead of time.
And
Your frequency needed to make a space. That gives me
and it is.
chills.
They're heavy practitioners of Ho'oponopono. I mean, pockets of people, obviously, but you know, Russia has
But the fact that you
fans.
actually had to go there, like you didn't have to, but the foreshadowing, I mean, I that is by no accident, as you know, or you
Oh,
wouldn't have brought it up. Um, so I do
right. No,
want to
I'm
give
with you. I'm with you. Yeah.
I want to give Robin and Monica and Ashwin, he can't come on, he or she, I'm not sure. Ashwin, my apologies. You can ask your question in the chat, but Monica or Robin, do you have a question? First, let me say, I don't think any of you would do this, but this isn't the time to say, would you write a forward in my book? Would you, like, none of those kind of questions, but if you have a question about creating reality, and I see Ashwin would like me to unmute, so you can ask your question, sure. I'm working on it. for some reason I've clicked it. So I don't know if you're getting it. Asked to unmute. Okay, we're not getting, that's not happening. I apologize. Monica, are you, do you have a question? There we go.
Hi, Dr. Joe. Thank you for being
Hi,
here.
how
And
are
Adora,
you?
thanks for setting this up. Well, thank you. So my question is, when you talked about the manifestation and where you came from and how you kind of got to where you were going, was there a specific order or was there a certain process that you had in place from where you had started to how you got there? Like,
It's a great question. You're causing me to reflect because I've done so many things. I'm trying to bottle it or whittle it down. You know what, how I would answer that right now, because I love your question. You're making me think here. Because back in those struggle days, I'm doing everything and I'm doing it by myself. And there's no internet back then. So, you know, you're getting in your car and driving places or you're making the phone calls, didn't have cell phones, all of that. It really seems to me that my speaking made a transformational difference. And when I say speaking, I've always been, you're not going to believe me because you've been watching me for the last hour. I've always been shy, introverted, insecure, could not speak in public at all. And so I had heard that if I'm an author, remember I had my first book, 1984, and I had heard that if I got in front of people and they liked me, they might buy my book. So as a marketing technique, I was practicing getting in front of, the first group had 6 people in it. So that was the crowd. And I almost fainted in front of 6 people. But I found that they bought the book. And then I found that if I put myself out there to speak, and back then, again, this is in Houston, Rotary clubs, Chamber of Commerce, whatever, Kiwanis, something like that, business networking groups, they all had breakfast groups and everything. If I can get somebody to invite me to speak, I would speak. I'd sell a few books, didn't get paid. I'd sell a few books, which gave me gas money. And almost always there was somebody in that audience who was a member of another group who would come up and say, hey, I like you. Would you come and speak to my group? I was on the informal speaking circuit, which caused me to get a bit of a reputation, a name for myself. And this is in Houston. And again, there's no internet to publicize anything that's going on. So most of this is word of mouth. But if I had to say, to answer your question, which is so great, it was probably speaking that really kickstarted it. And of course, COVID has me parked right now, but eventually I'll be doing live seminars. I'll be back on the road. I'll be comfortable traveling again. And so will other people. But I've been doing my speaking like now, online, over Zoom. And I've been doing it this way for 3 years. So I'm still reaching people in Italy and Poland and Ukraine and Canada. I haven't left my chair.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great
Thank
question,
you.
Monica.
That is a great question.
Yes. And those of you online, you know, especially with this platform, that can be podcasts, that can be, but it's getting in front of groups and being heard and getting the opportunity for your tribe to really hear you. And then probably your groundedness and authenticity and communicating what you love then drew your Soul People ashram.
Yeah. Am I audible now and visible?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So it's good to meet you, Dr. Joe. And it is definitely, I would say, a dream come true to a certain extent, because I've gone through your Opoponono online course. I've completed it.
Yes.
But never got a chance to see you live. So really happy about it. And this has always been a question in my mind, actually, that is it okay if I ask it in relate to Opoponono? Because I did not attend this session fully, so not sure. So
yes, you can ask about
question?
Ho'oponopono. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So as far as I know, there are the 4 main aspects. That is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. So there are certain people who do not believe in these 4 things. Like some people casually say that there's no thank you or sorry in friendship. And some people, they consider it as just an excuse for trying to defend ourselves. So in that case, how can Ho'oponopono help them? And if we want to do it with them?
So I'm going to give you a very blunt answer. And
Sure.
this answer is pure Ho'oponopono. And this answer is something Dr. Hulen, who was the man who taught me Ho'oponopono, would say. Dr. Hulen passed away earlier this year. He's gone. But I've known him well enough to know that this would be what he says. Ho'oponopono is never about other people. Ever, ever, ever. It is only about you and your responses to your perceptions. So when you sit there and you ask the question, what about these other people and what do you tell them and so forth, you don't tell them anything. If you are disturbed or upset in any way, shape, or form, or concerned about other people, all of that is in you. Your concern is in you. Your perception of them as having a problem or a need is in you. And what Ho'oponopono says is clean up you. Now, as you clean up you, doing Ho'oponopono, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, you may notice those outside people seem to shift and change, just like what happened at the mental hospital for the criminally insane. Dr. Hulen worked on himself, they changed, but only after he changed. So I know it's kind of a blunt answer and it's kind of a tough love approach, but my honest answer to you is if that is concerning you, you use Ho'oponopono in you on that concern.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you,
So,
Ashwin.
Yeah. So just a quick follow-up. So that means when I'm going to use it on myself, it is an indirect way to communicate and use these words to the other person if I want to communicate with him indirectly.
It's not about communicating with them at all. You clean up your desire to indirectly influence them, because that's actually a violation of free will. They have free will. They can do whatever they like. And what you're trying to do is change them. So your desire to change them, that impulse in you is what you use Ho'oponopono on. I'm suggesting that once you do that inside yourself, you might note that they do actually change, but that's not the reason and that's not the focus.
Wow, Ashwin, thank you for asking that. Did anyone else learn and get up leveled there? Like, oh, okay, we don't get to indirectly influence. That is a violation of free will, where we're always free to say what we want and ask for what we want, and then they're free to choose if it matches what they want or not. So there's not a challenge in wanting to influence or market the right people, but the work is always internal. And you get to say what you want and they get to say what they want and do what they want. Got it. Awesome. Okay, Robin, do you have a question? Yes. Let's see. There we go. Yes.
Okay. The Ho'oponopono to me is all about clearing out the triggers for all of the angst, all of the reactions that I allow to come upon me. But as I go through the Ho'oponopono, I find, and please let me know how you feel about this, that once it cleans and clears and neutralizes all of that in me, I'm available to ascend into less humanity, more spirituality. And for me, that's why I love the Ho'oponopono. It frees, it neutralizes me so that then I can join in with it's like Joe was saying, the universe, the God source, the divinity, the wisdom. And that's how you become one with something bigger than yourself and still be a part of yourself. Do you think?
Yes, I do.
Have you written on that?
Yes, I love what you just said. I think Ho'oponopono is one of the tools we have to clean ourselves or clear ourselves of those internal limits. So when my TV show is called Zero Limits Living, how do you get rid of the limits? and
Yeah.
moved to zero, which Dr. Hulen and I called divinity zero. It was the place of all
Right.
opportunities. It was the place of inspiration. It was the place where the triggers were gone. So to go with what you're saying, the more I can erase the triggers, the more I am available to
Right.
receive inspiration from the divine.
Yes.
And I think at that point, you become a funnel, you become a resource, you become a cone of opportunity, because the triggers are gone so that the divine can come and live and breathe through you. I wrote a book called The Awakening Course, and I said there were 4 stages of awakening. The very first one is victimhood. Most of us have been there. Many of us are still there. The very second one is empowerment. That's when they watch the movie The Secret and they learn some self-help skills. That's a great place to be. The third one is surrender. That's when you learn that there's something bigger than you, and something like Ho'oponopono can connect you to that bigger source. And the fourth one is awakening itself. And awakening is when the divine lives and breathes through you. That can happen the more, as you were describing and pointing out, we get rid of our triggers. We can't allow the divine to come through and express ourselves fully through us, because there's blocks there, there's triggers there, there's things that get flipped, buttons that are inside. But once they're gone, divinity can live and breathe through us.
Right. The law of attraction can start, and the law of attraction can manifest into whatever abundance is around you that you're not limiting. So that's great.
And I
Thank
would
you
say
so
the law
much,
of
Joe.
attraction at that point is coming from the divine and not from our ego.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
Great
you,
stuff. Thank
Robin.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all for the
Great stuff.
questions. Yeah, and to add to that, Robin, and to Joe, I think the law of attraction is always happening, but from that place, what you're saying is then toward your desires and divinity and where you want it to be happening, versus from ego, is what you called it just now. Awesome. So a few things, those of you that are here with us, thank you so much for your time. And if you're loving this conversation, definitely, we got several book suggestions, and you have plenty. If you ran out, if you've already read all of them, it's going to be a game of finding all of Dr. Joe Vitale's books, because he doesn't even know, but it's 80 plus. And then you let us know. Okay. And yeah, that is so awesome. I'm going to start that hunt. And then you also mentioned the website, ZeroLimits.com.
ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com for the TV show, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Okay.
Awesome. And we'll put in the show notes and in the replay. Oh, she's already on it. Monica's action. And we'll have socials and all that you can find in the email that we send the replay out with, as well as we're going to have Dr. Joe Vitale in our Can You Really Think and Grow Rich tour. So you can go to richtour22.com and register there as well to see more. Joe, thank you so much for your time, for your sincerity, for your enthusiasm. I also need to thank your lovely wife, because I see in all the photos how much happiness she brings to you, and a happier Joe means happier
what a
output.
nice thing to say. She'll love hearing
everywhere.
that.
Yeah. And I know that if your joy is complete, and that really seems to give you so much joy, then you are able to give us more. So thank you to her. And I look forward to being with you again.
Me too. Thank you. I've greatly enjoyed this. Great questions, great energy. We just elevated the planet from what we just did here. Godspeed to all of you. I love all of you. Thank you very much.
Bye for now, everyone.